Soon, the sound of fluttering wings came from outside the door. Then, tens of thousands of butterflies burst through the door, instantly covering my entire body. From then on, no matter where I went, I was surrounded by butterflies. Such a miraculous sight soon attracted the attention of many powerful figures, including Pei Yunhe, who was still the crown prince at the time. I relied on this exotic phenomenon and the favor of the empress to become Pei Yunhe's crown princess. Later, I became his empress. I strictly adhered to my duties, managing the inner palace with gentleness and virtue, stabilizing the empire for him. By design, I became the most perfect wife and empress in his eyes. But it wasn't until the day I died of illness that I saw the cold indifference behind this favor. Before I passed away, the entire court knelt in the hall, kowtowing to bid me farewell. Only my husband from my youth, Pei Yunhe, did not come, simply because his beloved consort Shu had lost her cat. The kitten cried piteously, and he, the ruler of a nation, personally went to search for it for his sweetheart. The cat was found, but it was injured. The moment before my passing, Pei Yunhe was still watching the imperial physician treat the cat. He only sent a eunuch to pass 2 sentences to me. You have always been a qualified wife and empress. If there is a next life, I would still choose you. Go in peace. I will personally arrange your funeral. My lifelong rival, noble consort Cui Luoyao, mocked me with disdain. Your temperament is too soft. Don't be the empress in your next life. Let me do it instead. Unexpectedly, her words came true. When I opened my eyes again, we had both returned to the day Pei Yunhe was choosing his crown princess. The empress pointed at me affectionately, asking for Pei Yunhe's opinion. But I pushed Cui Luoyao forward. Your Majesty, for the position of crown princess, the young lady of the Cui family is more suitable. The empress hesitated slightly, because Cui Luoyao came from a family of military generals. Her temperament was exceptionally fierce, whereas for generations, the daughters of my Jiang family were all known for being extremely gentle. Compared to Cui Luoyao, I was much easier to control. But Pei Yunhe didn't care at all. Anyone could be the crown princess. Indeed, if he couldn't marry his true love as his primary wife, then didn't it matter who it was? Pei Yunhe's sweetheart was named Lu Mingyun, the future consort Shu from my previous life. She was a wine seller, because when Pei Yunhe lost his memory in his youth, Lu Mingyun had accompanied him for a few drinks. Pei Yunhe regarded her as his salvation. He loved her deeply, obsessively, but Lu Mingyun's status was too low. The emperor and empress would not allow her to be the crown princess. Pei Yunhe was forced to compromise. He accepted the arrangement to marry into the Cui and Jiang families. Seeing that Pei Yunhe agreed, the empress said no more. She turned to look at me and Cui Luoyao, just like in our previous life, reminding us, you two must reach an agreement. General Cui and Minister Jiang are pillars of the court. The two families must not, because of their children's marriage, foster any resentment. I understood the empress's concern. Since childhood, both Cui Luoyao and I had been fond of Pei Yunhe. Although our upbringing prevented us from being openly hostile, we were constantly at odds in private. In the previous life, after Pei Yunhe chose me as the primary wife, and Cui Luoyao as the side consort, she competed with me for favor at every turn. Faking illness or miscarriages was a regular occurrence for her. But because I had a gentle nature, I didn't like to argue with her. Unless she went too far, I would only offer a few words of reprimand. Now, living this life again, knowing Pei Yunhe's true heart, I naturally wouldn't fight with Cui Luoyao over him anymore. I calmly replied to the empress, Your Majesty, please be at ease. This servant and Miss Cui have discussed it. We will certainly not hold a grudge because of this. The empress nodded with satisfaction. Then I will have the Ministry of Rites begin preparations. 3 days later, the crown prince will personally escort both of you to the Eastern Palace. I didn't refuse, because I knew very well that for the Jiang family to remain stable, we had to side with the crown prince. Cui Luoyao understood this too. That's why someone as proud as her, who said since childhood she would never be a concubine, chose to compromise in the previous life, and became a side consort. Although we both liked Pei Yun, we were first and foremost the eldest daughters of our families. Compared to our families, Pei Yunhe could only rank second. Cui Luoyao and I acknowledged the empress's words, and were about to leave, when suddenly Pei Yunhe made a request. Mother, in 3 days, this son wishes to marry Mingyun as well. The empress knew how to avoid impropriety. The crown princess is already decided. In the future, matters regarding concubines should be decided by Luoyao. Cui Luoyao was different from me. She was used to being direct. In the previous life, though she played little tricks like faking illness, she would admit it honestly if Pei Yunhe asked. And she wasn't one to shirk responsibility. If something was within her authority, she would use it without hesitation. So as soon as the empress finished speaking, she asked Pei Yunhe, It's fine for your highness to marry Lady Lu, but I wonder in what capacity? Pei Yunhe said without hesitation, naturally, as a side consort. In the previous life, after I was designated crown princess, Pei Yunhe had also brought this up. I thought that since it was the first request he had ever made of me, I didn't want to disappoint him. So I nodded and agreed. But at that time, we all fought. Pei Yunhe wanted to marry Lu Mingyun to repay a debt of gratitude, not knowing she was the person he loved most in the world. Even less did we know that Lu Mingyun was an extremely jealous person. Her fight for favor broke the hearts of everyone in the harem. Cui Luoyao was one of those heartbroken people. Having been reborn, she naturally wouldn't let such a thing happen again. She refused categorically. I am the daughter of a general, yet I am only a side consort. If Lady Lu's status were equal to mine, not only would the world laugh, it would also alienate the Jiang family. Pei Yunhe was stunned. Although Cui Luoyao was famous for being spicy, she was always exceptionally gentle toward Pei Yunhe. But now, her personality had changed as soon as she became the crown princess. Pei Yunhe naturally took her for someone greedy for glory and wealth. He couldn't help but frown and mock her. Yao, you are being far too narrow-minded. I underestimated the daughters of military men. They are indeed not considerate enough. I suspect the position of crown princess is still more suitable for the daughter of a civil official. Jean, what do you think? Pei Yunhe was like that. He didn't care which of us loved him. Nor did he care if our actions made any sense. All he wanted was someone obedient and submissive. Someone who could tolerate Lu Mingyun and his reckless behavior. Looking up, I happened to meet Pei Yunhe's expectant gaze. I understood what he meant. He wanted me to snatch the position of crown princess back myself. That way, even if people gossiped, they would be gossiping about me. But this time, for once, I didn't let him manipulate me. Instead, I respectfully lowered my eyes and declined. I will keep your highness's kindness in my heart. But Miss Chui's words and actions are all within the rules. No one could find fault with them. I am thoroughly convinced and have no reason to compete. Pei Yunhe trembled all over. His face flushed with anger. Yet he was left speechless. The Empress waved her hand wearily and said, enough, here. Who is primary and who is secondary? I don't care. Discuss it amongst yourselves. I have only one requirement. The Eastern Palace must be allied with the Cui and Jiang families through marriage. Leaving the Empress's chambers, neither Cui Luoyao nor I paid any attention to each other. Pei Yunhe and we each headed home. But he blocked my carriage at the palace gate. He wanted to continue persuading me to fight for the crown princess position. He was probably too anxious. He didn't even care about etiquette. With one long stride, he entered the carriage. I hurried off the carriage, submissively saying, Your Highness, men and women should maintain proper distance. If you have something to say, please say it like this. Pei Yunhe held the carriage curtain with one hand, his brow deeply furrowed. Jean, what exactly is wrong with you today? In the past, when I was sick or injured, you were the one who took care of me personally. How did we become so distant? True, my kindness to Pei Yunhe was known to all. I had stayed by his side without regret since childhood. He had a weak constitution and often fell ill. At a young age, I followed the imperial physician to learn some medicine, just to take care of him. Later, during the struggle for the throne, he faced countless assassination attempts. Whether minor or severe injuries, I watched over him day and night. My mother, worried about my reputation, had advised me many times, but in my heart, reputation was nothing compared to his safety. Mother always shook her head helplessly, saying I was too stubborn. She said even if Pei Yunhe were to kill me in the future, my soul probably wouldn't bear to leave him. I once thought so too. Until the disappointment of my previous life reached its peak. Only then did I realize that no matter how deep the love, one can let go. Your Highness, it was I who was indiscreet in the past, damaging your Highness's reputation. Now that I've seen reason, I should naturally keep my distance for your Highness's sake. Pain flashed in Pei Yunhe's eyes. He wanted to say more, but his personal guard rushed over and whispered, Your Highness, it's bad. Lady Lu heard about today's events. In a fit of rage, she blocked Miss Chui's carriage and said some provocative things. Miss Chui is furious and is preparing to punish her. Pei Yunhe was enraged, blurting out, How dare she? I thought he was talking about Lu Mingyun, but I didn't expect his next sentence to show his bias so vividly. Cui Luoyao comes from a prestigious family after all. How can she punish someone just over a few words? She is truly arrogant and overbearing, unfit for a great responsibility. It was the same in the previous life. No matter whose fault it was, Pei Yunhe would unconditionally side with Lu Mingyun. I couldn't help but feel sorry for Cui Luoyao, and for my past self. It was because of this pity that I suddenly changed my mind. Since we already knew it was a pit of fire, why should either of us jump in? Watching Pei Yunhe's retreating back, I instructed my personal maid, invite my father and General Cui over together. Lu Mingyun wasn't stupid. She had blocked Cui Luoyao in a secluded alleyway. She didn't want outsiders to see. When I arrived, Lu Mingyun was sitting on the muddy ground, burying her head in Pei Yunhe's arms, weeping piteously. Cui Luoyao sat on her horse, holding a leather whip, looking down at the couple, with eyes full of disdain. With Pei Yunhe there, Lu Mingyun still put on that innocent act. She sobbed, Your Highness. The guard's message was mistaken. I didn't provoke Miss Chui. I blocked her. Only to beg her to give me a chance to be with Your Highness. Your Highness knows my father is very vain. He said if I can't be the side consort, I should marry a merchant as his primary wife. If Miss Chui doesn't agree, then Mingyun can only painfully part from Your Highness. Pei Yunhe was filled with pain. He kissed Lu Mingyun's forehead as if no one else was around, and said, No. I will never part from you. And I will never let anyone bully you. Hearing Pei Yunhe's words, Chui Luoyao couldn't help but sneer. Your Highness, from the moment you arrived, you haven't even asked what happened. How can you be so sure I was the one bullying her? Pei Yunhe said dismissively, Fine. Then you tell me. He would listen. Seeing Pei Yunhe had a shred of reason, Chui Luoyao's expression softened slightly. Your Highness, this Lady Lu blocked my carriage, and has been aggressive from the start. She said Your Highness only loves her. That Ningjin and I are both shameless women throwing ourselves at you. And that sooner or later, she will replace us. Nonsense. Before Chui Luoyao could finish, she was sharply interrupted by Pei Yunhe. Mingyun would never say such things. I have known her for years, and understand her best. She never craves wealth or status. Nor is she someone who would speak so arrogantly. It is you who are jealous, deliberately trying to drive a wedge between us. Previously, because of my generosity and tolerance, Lu Mingyun had lived a relatively easy life, so she hadn't been this sharp. She only used small tricks to fight for favor. Naturally, Chui Luoyao hadn't realized that Pei Yunhe could be so blinded by bias. She stood there stunned, not knowing how to respond for a moment. I stepped forward solemnly. Your Highness, Luoyao was personally raised by General Chui. The world knows General Chui's integrity. Luoyao's words are certainly not slander. We all understand Your Highness's preference for Lady Lu, but there's really no need to label Luoyao as a jealous woman. But Pei Yunhe was in a fit of rage, and his heart ached for the weeping Lu Mingyun. How could he listen to any reason? His face grew even darker, and he even scolded me, Jiang Ningjin. Don't put on that air of being perfect. You and Chui Luoyao have never been on good terms. Speaking for her now. Isn't it also because you're jealous that Mingyun has my heart? I originally thought you were sensible enough to be crown princess. But now it seems you are as narrow-minded as Chui Luoyao. You are simply not worthy of being the crown princess. I was neither angry nor upset. Asking calmly, then does Your Highness believe only Lu Mingyun is worthy of being the crown princess? Pei Yunhe snorted coldly. Of course. If not for my father and mother's coercion, I would have stayed with Mingyun as a devoted couple for life. How could I have married you two against my will? Remember this well. If you ever make Mingyun cry again, I will never forgive you. With that, Pei Yunhe picked up Lu Mingyun and left without looking back. I smiled bitterly and asked Chui Luoyao, Do you still want to be the crown princess or empress? Before Chui Luoyao could answer, two figures stepped out from around the corner. General Chui's beard was bristling with anger. He said in a booming voice, Forget it. If His Majesty hadn't pleaded for this alliance, I wouldn't have been willing to let my most precious daughter marry into the palace and suffer like this. General Chui was a military man, with a fiery temperament. My father was much more steady. He advised, Brother Chui, mind your words. We have already agreed to the alliance. If we go back on our word now, it would be the crime of deceiving the emperor. General Chui said in frustration, Brother Jiang, you're really something. You saw that woman just now. The way she was putting on an act. She will surely frame our daughters in the future. Are you really willing to let your daughter suffer? My father patted General Chui's shoulder and consoled him, Brother Chui, don't be hasty. I love my daughter as much as you do. But the crime of deceiving the emperor is no small matter. We must find a way that serves both ends. General Chui and Chui Luoyao asked in unison. What way? What way? I had been personally taught by my father since I was a child, and I knew his mind like the back of my hand. With one look at his eyes, I knew what his idea was. So I said on his behalf, Luoyao, don't we both have a younger sister who causes headaches? The two of them have been full of schemes since they were little. Dealing with Lady Lu would be child's play for them. My mother died early. My sister was born of a secondary wife, but she was technically considered a legitimate daughter. Marrying her wouldn't be an insult to the royal family. What mattered was that my sister, in her quest to climb the social ladder, had once gone to great lengths to suppress me, throwing the entire household into chaos. My father had been extremely frustrated with her. If she could take my place, not only would it protect me and fulfill her wish, but it might also bring some peace to the household. As for Chui Luoya's sister, she was biological, but she was very calculating, and had done many bad things. The Chui couple never liked her, and wished they could marry her off sooner. Unfortunately, her bad reputation preceded her, and no one dared to marry her. After hearing my words, General Chui's eyes lit up. He shouted, Great idea. His Majesty and the Empress only said our two families must marry a daughter into the Eastern Palace. They didn't specify which one. This wouldn't count as deceiving the Emperor. The idea is good, But neither of these sisters is willing to be beneath the other. So who should be the primary wife? The three of them looked at me, waiting for me to decide. I smiled calmly. Since neither will yield, why not have them both be side consorts? Give the position of primary wife to Lady Lu. As for whether she can hold on to it, it will all depend on her own ability. After the decision was made, the two fathers went home to prepare. I went with Cui Luoyao to the Crown Prince's manor. When Pei Yunhe heard we were there to apologize, he was overjoyed. I didn't want to hear his pompous praise. So I interrupted, Your Highness. After this incident, we both understand Lady Lu's importance in Your Highness's heart. The daughters of the Cui and Jiang families are willing to be side consorts together. Pei Yunhe was completely stunned. It took him a while to snap out of it. Is that true? I nodded heavily. But for the sake of our family's honor, we ask Your Highness to grant us one request. Pei Yunhe said eagerly, Whatever you say. Since we are to be side consorts, please don't involve the Ministry of Rites with the gifts, to avoid being laughed at. In 3 days, Your Highness should come directly for the wedding. The exchange will take place during the ceremony. Pei Yunhe agreed without any hesitation. 3 mornings later, Cui Luoyao and I stood side by side on the street. We watched Pei Yunhe leading 3 bridal sedans, heading toward the Eastern Palace with a beaming smile. Cui Luoyao stared fixedly at Pei Yunhe's retreating back. She asked curiously, Ningjin, do you think in this life, the Crown Prince and Lady Lu will still get their way? As she spoke, the sky suddenly filled with dark clouds, and large raindrops fell without warning. I opened an oil paper umbrella, and smiled softly. Luoyao, the weather has changed. Cui Luoyao took my arm, and the two of us squeezed under the small umbrella, feeling strangely at peace. Cui Luoyao smiled. Jean, do you remember our previous life, the first time we shared an umbrella? When was that? I nodded, and recalled calmly, Of course I remember. In the 2nd month after we married into the Eastern Palace, the Crown Prince stayed in my room. To fight for favor, you ran out into the heavy rain all night. You wanted to use a fever to lure him away from me. After the palace maid told me, I went out to find you. I held the umbrella for you, and you even called me a hypocrite. Cui Luoyao scratched her head awkwardly. I was obsessed back then, thinking we were equal in status. Why should you be the primary wife? I saw raindrops falling on her shoulder, so I tilted the umbrella a bit more toward her. Looking at the tilted umbrella, Cui Luoyao's voice suddenly choked up. Jean, that time was just like today. Half of your body was wet for my sake, but I didn't realize it. I didn't stop, and instead fought with you with all my might for a lifetime. Thinking back now, I was truly foolish. I couldn't help but laugh. If I told you the truth, you'd feel even more foolish. Do you want to hear it? Cui Luoyao nodded without hesitation. Anyway, I've been foolish my whole life. What was I afraid of? I just started talking. Actually, that day, the Crown Prince didn't stay in my room. You looked for the wrong person, and cried at the wrong grave. I had never told Cui Luoyao about this. In our past life, Lu Mengyun entered the palace with us. But Pei Yunhe was afraid that favoring her too much would bring her the jealousy of the harem and the censure of the Empress Dowager, so he begged me to act as their shield. He even knelt before me. His eyes red as he said, Jean, you are the most sensible and generous. Mengyun has a weak constitution and cannot bear any grievance. Help me, I'll give you anything you want later. He swore he would give me anything but his heart. Everyone thought he stayed in my room every night. Little did they know that after the lights went out, he would quietly leave through the back window to accompany Lu Mengyun all through the night. The reason I was willing to help him was because I truly loved him then, and also to gain a foothold in the Eastern Palace and serve as a source of support for my family. So I chose to swallow my pride, enduring the reputation of being a favored consort and bearing the overt and covert schemes from you and the other women in the harem. I once hoped my generosity and sacrifice would make Pei Yunhe realize my worth and eventually look back at me, but it was all an empty dream. Until my final moments, he didn't even come to see me once, only sending a casual message saying, You are very good. After Luoyao finished listening to my words, her spine stiffened. She was struck with shock. Tears instantly burst from her eyes, sliding down her cheeks. Her throat moved for a long time before she rasped out, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I really didn't know you suffered so much grievance. I calmly held her hand. Yao. No need to say sorry. Before I died, you were able to set aside our past feuds and stayed by my bedside to accompany me. From that, I knew you never truly hated me. We were just both pathetic people trapped by that man and that imperial city. Luoyao then wiped the corners of her eyes and took a deep breath, recovering the brightness of a general's daughter. Good. Let the past be the past. In this life, neither of us owes the other anything. Jean, what do you plan to do next? Regarding the Duke of Qin's household, I looked at the rain, a sincere smile touching my lips. Yesterday, my father already took me to meet the eldest son of the Duke of Qin, Qin Mukan. We had a meeting. Cui Luoyao's eyes widened in surprise, and she grabbed my sleeve. So fast? How was it? How was it? That. Qin Mukin is a famously aloof scholar in the capital. Is he easy to get along with? In my mind, the scene of meeting Qin Mukin at the Qin family villa yesterday reappeared. He wore a moon-white robe, standing under the emerald trees, upright as a pine tree. As I walked in, he put down his book, his gaze gentle and clear. He didn't act high and mighty like Pei Yunhe, but instead, he bowed to me politely. Miss Jiang, Mukin knows this marriage was initially to solve the dilemma of the Jiang and Cui families. His voice was as smooth as jade, yet it carried a calming strength. But since I have agreed, it is by no means a joke. If you are willing to marry me, I will not fail your affection in this lifetime. I only wish to live in harmony with you, staying together until our hair turns white. No calculation, no exploitation, only honesty and respect. At that moment, my heart, which had withered in the palace for 1,000 years, miraculously felt a trace of a flutter. I pulled my thoughts back and looked at Cui Luoyao. I think he is very good. I'm planning to marry him. Now it was her turn to be shocked. Hearing this, Cui Luoyao immediately beamed and clapped her hands. It seems those two old men really did plan this together. My father also took me for a meeting yesterday. It was with the Duke of Qin's second grandson, Qin Muting. Qin Muting? I asked in surprise. Yeah, that guy is practically a block of wood. Although Cui Luoyao spoke with feigned disdain, the corners of her eyes couldn't hide her smile. Yesterday, when we met, without a word, he pulled out the sword from his waist and stuffed it into my hands. Blushing, he said, Miss Cui, I'm clumsy and don't know how to say pretty things. If you marry me, and I ever bully you in the future, you can take this sword and cut me. Isn't that funny? I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Qin Muting's directness and sincerity, really, made him a perfect match for Cui Luoyao's fiery temperament. So that means, we will be sisters-in-law in the future. Cui Luoyao waved her hand dismissively. Whatever. Since you've agreed to marry, I might as well marry too. At least we'll have each other's company in the Duke's estate. To keep causing trouble for the Qin family, the two of us acted immediately, to prevent any unforeseen problems. That very afternoon, Chancellor Jiang and General Cui went in person to the Duke of Qin's estate to officially exchange the birth charts and marriage contracts. With this official and binding relationship, not even the Heavenly Emperor could break us apart. That night, to celebrate the engagement, the three families gathered in the backyard of the Duke's estate to have dinner together. The atmosphere was lively with wine and laughter. Qin Mukin sat by my side, occasionally serving me food and soup, his manners incredibly thoughtful. On the other side, Muting was being pressured by Cui Luoyao to drink, and the two of them even started playing finger-guessing games, making the elders laugh heartily. In the middle of this harmonious scene, the manager of the Duke's estate suddenly came running and stumbling to report. His face was pale. My lords, the Crown Prince is here with the Eastern Palace guards. They are approaching aggressively. Calculating the time, Pei Yunhe should be in the Eastern Palace, with his darling Lu Mingyun, and our two sisters who had married in our place. They should be in the bridal chamber. The reason, I thought so, was that in our past life on this day, Pei Yunhe didn't even bother to lift the veils of me and Cui Luoyao, before impatiently rushing into Lu Mingyun's room. We were dressed in heavy bridal gowns, staying alone in the empty bridal chambers all night. When dawn broke, I finally received a casual explanation from Pei Yunhe. He said he was drunk last night, and had fallen asleep after entering a random room. Naturally, I didn't believe him, but I chose to play dumb and didn't expose him. I even helped him deceive Cui Luoyao, who had also waited all night. Probably because of this, Pei Yunhe was convinced that I was a submissive softie, and thereafter always felt entitled to use me as a shield. But this time, something had gone wrong. He actually lifted the veils early, and found that the people had been switched. Just as I was wondering, Pei Yunhe kicked open the door of the Duke's main hall, and marched in. His eyes were bloodshot, and he still wore the groom's gold crown on his head. His red wedding robes flapped loudly in the night wind. Behind him, followed three women also wearing red bridal gowns, the terrified Lu Mingyun, and the indignant Jiang Ningyi and Cui Luowan. He swept his gaze in a rage across those of us who were calmly eating, his eyes fixed deathly on me and Cui Luoyao, questioning. Jiang Ningjin, Cui Luoyao, you two have quite the nerve. How dare you have others marry in your stead? What do you take me for? A monkey? Fortunately, I had a sudden whim tonight to check on you first. Now, lift those veils and switch back with me immediately. I don't like your sisters. Hearing these words, the two sisters behind him instantly had their faces turn extremely ugly. They were afraid their chance was slipping away, and said in unison, the marriage contracts have been exchanged, and we have already bowed to your highness. How can you say you don't want us anymore? There is no reason for the royal family to back out now. Pei Yunhe snorted with disdain, not even bothering to look at them. Do you really think your sisters were sincerely letting you have this? They were just playing hard to get with me. To put it bluntly, You two are just bait to make me regret it. And make me jealous. As soon as I say the word, they will kick you aside immediately. The second Chui daughter, Chui Luowan, had a short temper. She glared at Chui Luoyao with resentment. Gritting her teeth, "Sister. Is what His Highness says true? Is that really what you're thinking? Playing me like a monkey?" My stepsister Jiangmingyi was also red-eyed with anger. "Sister, I call you sister out of respect. If you're just using me to get the prince's attention, I, Jiangmingyi, will not let this go." Seeing how ungrateful they were being, and how they dared to question her in public, Chui Luoyao's anger flared up instantly. She jumped up to scold them, but I held her down. I gave Qin Mukin a reassuring glance, then slowly stood up, and pulled the two sisters to a corner of the hall. Looking at their hostile eyes, I spoke in a low, earnest voice. "Yao and I indeed don't like you. Since we were small, you haven't stopped tripping us up. But in the end, we are sisters from the same clans. We rise together, and we fall together. If we really wanted to use you as bait, why would we risk the crime of deceiving the emperor? Moreover, why would we cut off our own retreat?" Seeing that they were still skeptical, I pulled out from my sleeve the marriage contract that had just been stamped with the bright red seal, and unfolded it before their eyes. "Open your eyes and look clearly. This is our marriage contract with the Duke of Qin's estate, in black and white, witnessed by heaven and earth. If we really wanted to use you to test the prince, why would we agree to marry others? The imperial family is hard to enter, but is the threshold of the duke's estate low?" The two of them stared intently at the marriage contract. After confirming it was correct, they looked at each other, and only then did the hostility in their eyes slowly dissipate. They tentatively asked, "Sister, are you really, sincerely helping us out? Do you really not love the crown prince anymore?" I nodded without hesitation, my gaze as calm as water. "Not only will I help you, but the chancellor's and general's estates will be your biggest supporters in the Eastern Palace, protecting you for a lifetime. But the prerequisite is that you must agree to one condition of mine." Faced with the temptation of wealth and power, the two of them nodded vigorously in unison. "Sister, as long as we can stay as side consorts in the Eastern Palace, let alone one condition, we would agree to 100. I leaned closer to them and lowered my voice, my tone steady as a blade. "You are not allowed to fight each other. In the Eastern Palace, you only have one target." Jiangmingyi was the most cunning. Her eyes rolled, and she was the first to react. Her gaze immediately shot towards the distance, at the trembling Lu Mingyun. "Sister, you mean Lu Mingyun?" I nodded with satisfaction. "The prince loves her deeply. He treats her as his life. As long as she is in the Eastern Palace for a day, you won't have a single day of peace. But if she is gone, or if she loses favor by committing a major error, with your family backgrounds and the support of the chancellor, and general, even if the prince is dissatisfied, would he dare to not treat you well? The position of crown princess will be yours sooner or later." Only then did the two of them realize the truth. Jiangmingyi slapped her chest, her eyes sparkling with excitement and ruthlessness. "Understood. Don't worry, sister. Dealing with a little fox who pretends to be weak is not a difficult task for us at all. In the inner household, I have 100 ways to make her life a living hell. The key is that you have to find a way first to make the prince accept us tonight, so we can stay in the Eastern Palace legitimately." I patted her shoulder to give her some reassurance. "Don't worry. We were already prepared. Tonight, the prince won't be able to take us away." Seeing us whispering in the corner for so long, Pei Yunhe had long since lost his patience. He strode over and pushed the two sisters aside, urging, "Jean, are you finished talking? If you are, then hurry back to the palace with me. I'll give your father some face today, and won't pursue your crime of making a scene." I stood up, and firmly protected the two sisters behind me. Unfazed, I met Pei Yunhe's possessive gaze, and slowly spoke, "Your Highness, the Empress's decree stated that the Jiang and Shui families must intermarry with the Eastern Palace, but it didn't specify by name who must marry over. Mingyi and Luowan are also legitimate daughters of the chancellor's and general's estates. They are skilled in the arts. They won't let your highness suffer. Furthermore, back in the Eastern Palace, Yao and I only told your highness that the daughters of the two families would be side consorts together, but we never said the ones marrying would be us. Your highness probably assumed it yourself." Pei Yunhe's back stiffened. He regretted it. He frowned deeply, carefully recalling the conversation in the study that day. Indeed, from beginning to end, we only mentioned the daughters of the Chui and Jiang families, never mentioning Mingjin and Luoya's names. For a moment, he had been caught in the loophole I had created. He didn't know how to argue back, but his pride as the crown prince, and the immense sense of humiliation from being fooled by several women still made him extremely unwilling. He roughly raised his voice, shouting, "So what if I misunderstood? I am the crown prince, the future ruler of the world. I command you to switch back with them right now. In this Daqin Empire, I will have whoever I want." How bold! Before I could answer, the Duke of Qin, who had been sitting in the main seat, finally couldn't sit still anymore. This three-reign veteran, who leaned on a dragon-headed staff with white hair and beard, suddenly struck the ground heavily with his staff, making a loud bang. Your Highness is putting on quite an air. Are you trying to forcefully take away the granddaughters-in-law I just settled on? The Duke's voice was aged, yet full of strength and a natural, commanding aura. The Duke of Qin had followed the previous emperor to conquer the land. He held the king-beating golden whip, which could strike a foolish ruler, or a treacherous official. Even the current emperor, upon seeing him, would politely offer him a seat, and show him respect. Pei Yun had trembled at this angry roar. Arrogant as he wasn't a fool. He didn't dare openly clash with the military's number one figure. His face turned pale and then flushed. He could only suppress his anger, politely bowed his hands, and said with a forced smile, "Did I hear you wrong, Duke? You are a pillar of our nation's founding. No matter how bold I am, I wouldn't dare take anyone from you. I'm only handling the Eastern Palace's family affairs." Family affairs? The Duke of Qin snorted. He lifted his chin. The tall Qin Mukin and the energetic Qin Muting immediately understood. The two brothers strode forward, protecting me and Cui Luoyao on each side. Then they pulled out those two gold-trimmed marriage contracts and held them up in front of Pei Yunhe. "Your Highness, these are the marriage contracts between us and the ladies of the Jiang and Cui families. They have already been processed. The official seal is on them. Please take a look." Mukin spoke gently, but his tone carried an unshakable determination. Pei Yunhe's entire body shook violently. He looked down in disbelief at the bright red official seal and private seals. They were like a sharp knife, piercing his eyes. In the next moment, his expression changed drastically, and his body stumbled half a step back. He didn't dare question the highly respected Duke of Qin, nor did he dare lash out at the Qin brothers. He could only fix his bloodshot, angry, and confused eyes on me, who usually had the softest temperament, and was always obedient to him. Jin, did you two plan this long ago? Otherwise, why would you be in such a hurry to settle the engagement today? Are you getting revenge on me, or playing hard to get? He growled like an enraged, cornered beast. I met his gaze and smiled faintly. My voice as warm as a spring breeze, yet as cold as a blade. Your Highness overthinks it. Yao and I have long been mutually in love with the two Qin brothers. The elders also long had the idea of joining our families. Originally, because of the Empress's decree. For your Highness's sake, we even intended to bear the pain and set aside this deep affection. But that day, at the palace gate, for Miss Lu's sake, your Highness said that if you couldn't marry your beloved, it didn't matter who became the crown princess, since in your Highness's eyes, we were just ornaments who could be replaced by anyone. Then why would we wrong ourselves and fail the sincerity of the Qin brothers? So, we made a new choice. I paused for a moment, feigning sensibility and taking a generous step back. But it's all right. The Cui and Jiang families have always been loyal and patriotic. An imperial command cannot be disobeyed. If your Highness insists on breaking up a couple and forcing us to enter the Eastern Palace, then we sisters will go and cancel the engagement tomorrow. At most, we'll just have to live with letting down the Duke's kindness and ruining our own reputations for life. My words immediately put Pei Yunhe in an impossible situation. To force us to cancel the engagement now would not only brand him as a tyrant who steals others' wives and bullies loyal officials, but it would also directly offend the Duke of Qin, whose influence in the court was immeasurably deep. For him, who was still consolidating his position and desperately needed to win over officials, this would be a fatal blow. Pei Yunhe's breathing became extremely heavy. He gritted his teeth so hard that the muscles in his jaw shook from the effort. Though he was fuming with rage, he knew clearly that he had to swallow his pride tonight. He clenched his fists, his knuckles turning a pale white. After a long time, he managed to suppress the rising surge of frustration and anger in his chest. Good. Very good. Pei Yunhe practically ground his teeth as he spat out those words. In that case, I won't force you. I wish you and the Qin brothers a long life together. With a trembling hand, he turned around abruptly, pointing to Jiang Ningyi and Cui Luowan, who had been watching from the back. He took a deep breath, trying to maintain a shred of his pitiful dignity. They are also very good. The daughters of the Chancellor in general are more than worthy of being my side consorts. As long as they behave themselves and serve me diligently, I will certainly not mistreat them. I walked forward, held the hands of the two sisters, and feigned a reluctant farewell. Now that you're entering the palace, you belong to the imperial family. Be careful with your words and actions. Serve the prince and consort Lu well, and don't bring shame to our families. In my heart, I couldn't help but laugh coldly. These two, who at home would beat a maid half to death over half a bolt of silk, and who fought like rival roosters every day, how could they possibly stay well-behaved in the Eastern Palace? Lu Mingyun's good days have come to a complete end. As we were seeing them off, Pei Yunhe didn't say a single word. With a dark face, he used extreme violence to shove Lu Mingyun into his carriage. Then, he drove away in a huff. The two sisters were startled by his rough actions. Standing in the cold wind, watching the carriage disappear, jealousy almost flared from their eyes. Seeing this, I slowly walked over to them, adjusting Jiang Mingyi's cloak that had been ruffled by the wind. I whispered a reminder, you two must remember. Never overestimate your weight in the crown prince's heart, nor underestimate Lu Mingyun's tactics. The prince is madly in love with her, and is extremely biased toward her. You have just entered the Eastern Palace, and your foundations are not yet stable. If you go head-to-head or directly move against Lu, it will only anger the prince. In the end, you won't gain his favor, and you might not even be able to save your lives. I looked at their thoughtful faces, and continued to guide them. So, don't be in a hurry. To deal with a woman who has so deeply captured his heart, you must choose a subtle, long-term method to kill with a borrowed knife. Let her make her own mistakes. Make her lose that layer of perfect disguise, in front of the crown prince. Hearing this, the two sisters felt enlightened, and the resentment on their faces immediately faded. Jiang Mingyi adjusted the jewels on her head, a determined and cold sneer curving her lips. Don't worry. In terms of literature, etiquette, and the big picture, we may not match you. But when it comes to inner house schemes and manipulation, or even underhanded tactics, we are the experts. We will definitely let Lu Mingyun know. That being a side consort in the Eastern Palace isn't so easy. I smiled calmly, and took half a step back. Then I wish you a swift victory. If there is anything that needs to be handled outside, just send word out. As long as it doesn't involve the families, Luo Yao and I will do our best to help. Although Cui Luo Yao, in her heart, looked down on this half-sister of hers, she also considered the family's interests, and hummed in agreement. Jiang Mingyi and Cui Luowan only then realized that Cui Luo Yao and I were truly planning for their sake. The two of them suddenly felt a bit of guilt. They lowered their heads and said in unison, Sister, I'm sorry for how I acted at home before. I shook my head, and patted their shoulders. No need to say sorry. We are sisters connected by blood. No matter how much we quarrel, in this capital city full of schemes, we are all in the same boat. Take good care of yourselves. Staying alive is what matters most. Watching the Eastern Palace's green carriage pick them up and disappear into the night, Cui Luoyao finally let out a long sigh. She turned to me. Jean, you are too soft-hearted. Have you forgotten how they used to harm us at home? How they drugged us to ruin our reputations? I turned around, walking alongside Qin Mukin back into the Duke's estate. I replied calmly, I haven't forgotten. But their honor or disgrace now is tied to the foundations of the Jiang and Cui families in court. The appearances we must maintain, and the support we must give, must be done thoroughly. Only when they gain a firm foothold in the Eastern Palace can our two families sleep soundly. Only then did Cui Luoyao nod her head. Right, evil people will be tormented by their own kind. I just wonder if their amateurish house-fighting skills can truly defeat that deeply scheming Lu Mingyun. To tell you the truth, I'm actually quite looking forward to this Eastern Palace drama. Pulling her along, I said softly, no rush. The battles of the inner palace are never decided in just a day or two. We just need to watch slowly. Life after marriage was unexpectedly peaceful and warm. Qin Mukin truly did as he promised before the wedding, treating me like a precious treasure. He wasn't like Pei Yunhe, who would use various rules and rituals to demand that I be a perfect crown princess. During his leisure time, he would spend time with me in the study, appreciating ancient and rare books together. When I caught a cold, he would stay by my bedside without undressing, personally brewing medicine for me. Meanwhile, that bickering couple, Cui Luoyao and Qin Muting, turned the Duke's estate upside down with their antics. Qin Muting was a martial arts fanatic, frequently dragging Cui Luoyao to the martial arts field to compete. When they got really competitive, Cui Luoyao would grab her red-tasseled spear and chase Qin Muting all over the courtyard. The Duke of Qin wasn't angry. Instead, his beard twitched with joy. He said this was the vigor a family of generals should have. Here, we enjoyed the true warmth of a family that we had never experienced in the palace in our past lives. Meanwhile, at the Eastern Palace, just as we predicted, it had turned into a treacherous battlefield. Sure enough, we waited for a year and a half before finally hearing a piece of shocking news. That was incredibly satisfying. It was an early summer afternoon. Qin Mukin returned from the court. While I was helping him change, he lowered his voice to deliver a news that shocked the court. Jean, something major has happened in the Eastern Palace. 2 months ago, when the Crown Prince accompanied His Majesty to Mount Tai, he took side consort Lu as well as our two sisters along. Who would have thought that midway, a group of rebels, who were former associates of the rival faction, would suddenly appear? They set an ambush to take the Crown Prince's life. My movements paused slightly, my eyebrows raising. Oh? What was the outcome? In Qin Mukin's eyes, there flashed a meaningful glint. They fought to the death, and the prince was severely wounded. At the critical moment of life and death, it was your sisters, Jiang Mingyi and Cui Luowan, who stepped forward without hesitation. risking their lives to protect the prince as he broke through. To block an arrow for the prince, Jiang Mingyi took a blade to the chest, almost dying from a heart-piercing injury. Cui Luowan, while fighting the rebels, had the tendons in her arm severed. Although their lives were saved, Cui Luowan's right hand is completely ruined. She can never lift a heavy object again. I gasped in surprise. To fight for favor and status, these two girls truly were ruthless to themselves. And what about Lu Mingyun? I continued to ask. That is the most crucial part of this drama. Qin Mukan sneered, his tone full of disdain. That woman, who usually professes her eternal love for the prince, sighed Consort Lu, the moment the rebels attacked, was actually scared out of her wits. She didn't care about the prince at all. Instead, by herself, she took advantage of the chaos to flee into a hidden cave. She hid there until reinforcements arrived, and the danger had completely passed. Only then did she run out of the cave, clinging to the prince and crying hysterically, pretending to show concern. The prince looked at the blood-covered, dying sisters, and then looked at the unharmed Lu Mingyun, who was only busy crying. At that moment, the prince's heart went completely cold. Mukan said that after returning to the capital from Mount Tai, Pei Yunhe never entered Lu Mingyun's room again. He not only took the most precious supplements from the treasury, awarding them to the two sisters who risked their lives to save him, but he also took away the authority to manage the Eastern Palace, directly from Lu Mingyun's hands. He later handed it over to the recently recovered Jiang Mingyi. The relationship between the two dropped to freezing point. Later, when Jiang Mingyi recovered from her wounds, and was granted permission to visit home, she personally and vividly recounted the story to me. I looked at her, though her face was pale. Between her eyebrows, there was a look of uncontrollable triumph. I dismissed the servants, and personally poured a cup of hot tea for her. The fact that this group of rebels appeared so coincidentally. You were the ones who found them, weren't you? I looked at her with a half-smile, softly asking out of certainty. Jiang Mingyi's hand holding the teacup paused slightly. Then, she scratched her head awkwardly, leaned closer to me, and whispered with a laugh, Big sister truly is as wise as a god. Nothing can be hidden from you. What rival faction? This was just Cui Luowan and me. We sold all of our dowry to hire desperate bandits from the black market at a high price to pose as them. Even though I was prepared, I was still broken out into a cold sweat by their sheer audacity. Are you crazy? If the bandits had lost control and killed the prince, or if you hadn't controlled your own injuries well, that would be the crime of treason, punishable by the execution of 9 generations. Jiang Mingyi waved her hand nonchalantly, a flash of mad ambition in her eyes. Wealth is found in danger. Sister, you don't know what kind of life we've had in the Eastern Palace. For over a year, the prince only has eyes for that bitch. When we went to pay our respects, we were punished by being made to kneel in the snow. Our allowances were withheld under various excuses. If we didn't use a powerful medicine, we would eventually be tormented to death in the Eastern Palace. Those bandits were all paid to do a job. They have professional ethics. That arrow and that blade. We calculated the positions in advance, and threw ourselves into them. Though the pain was worse than death, compared to this overwhelming favor and the prince's guilt, it was worth it. I shook my head. This level of ruthlessness was something that Cui Luoyao and I truly couldn't have matched in our previous lives. And what about Lu Mingyun? Based on my understanding of her from the past, although she is selfish, she does have some true love for the prince. In such a dangerous situation, even if she was scared, she wouldn't have completely ignored the prince's survival and hidden herself, right? I continued to ask. Jiang Mingyi gave me a thumbs up, completely in awe of my insight. Sister, you truly are as wise as a god. Of course, she didn't hide there on her own. In Jiang Mingyi's eyes, there flashed a glint of extremely vicious pleasure. It was Cui Luowan. She had secretly raised a few trusted dead soldiers. When the bandits attacked and the scene was most chaotic, the soldiers took the chance to knock Lu Mingyun unconscious, and forcibly dragged her away, hiding her in that cave using drugs. Once the reinforcements arrived, the soldiers woke her up and let her go. Lu Mingyun was completely bewildered at the time. She ran out and tried desperately to explain to the prince that someone had knocked her out, but the scene was chaotic then, and there were no witnesses left alive. Where was there even a shred of evidence? The prince saw the two of us covered in blood from saving him, and then looked at the unharmed her. Naturally, he thought she was shirking her responsibility, because she was greedy for life and afraid of death. He even, in front of all the imperial guards, gave her a harsh slap. He cursed her for being a selfish, poisonous woman. Hearing this as a bystander, I only felt a surge of gratification in my chest. The resentment accumulated from my previous life seemed to dissipate at this moment with the aroma of the tea. Indeed, evil people must be handled by their own kind. To deal with a green tea like Lu Mingyun, who is good at playing pitiful and using love to manipulate others, you must use these more vicious physical methods that leave her no room to explain. So, what do you plan to do next? I asked calmly while sipping my tea. Jiang Mingyi subconsciously touched her flat stomach. her gaze becoming extremely deep and cruel. Next, of course, we must strike while the iron is hot. To drive her to desperation. So she can never rise again. Sister, Chui Luowan and I have already spent a fortune to completely bribe 2 imperial physicians in the Eastern Palace. We are taking a special herb that can create an extremely realistic illusion of a pregnancy pulse. We are prepared to announce to the world that we have both conceived the prince's children at the same time. Not only that, we also have our maids gossip outside Lu Mingyun's courtyard all day, carelessly whispering that the prince is grateful to us for saving his life. Now that we are both pregnant, he intends to depose her, the barren official consort, and appoint one of us in her place, so that the child can be born with the noble title of the eldest legitimate son. Lu Mingyun was already in a state of extreme panic and paranoia due to losing favor. Now, hearing that we are to replace her and give birth to the prince's eldest son, with her narrow-minded and jealous nature, she will definitely lose her cool. Jiang Ningyi sneered, her tone like a demon from hell. As long as she dares to act, to make even the slightest underhanded move against our pregnancy medicine or food, we will immediately take action, feign a tragic miscarriage, and pin on her the capital crime of poisoning the imperial heir. At that time, the evidence will be conclusive, with both the person and the evidence caught. Even if the prince still has feelings for her, even if he wants to protect her, facing the monstrous crime of murdering an imperial heir, and the thunderous wrath of the Empress Dowager and the Emperor, he absolutely won't be able to protect her. I quietly listened to this series of interlocking, extremely vicious schemes. Saying nothing more, I just took out a precious 100-year-old ginseng from a nearby box, handed it to her, and said, "Be careful. When putting on this act, don't end up hurting your own health," I cautioned calmly. Jiang Ningyi took the ginseng gratefully, and nodded heavily. Then, as if remembering something, she looked up at me very seriously and asked, "Sister, once Lu Mingyun is dealt with, I want to have a real fight with Chui Luowan in the Eastern Palace for the position of Crown Princess. What do you think?" My hand holding the teacup paused slightly. I had already guessed her thoughts. It wasn't just her. I also knew extremely clearly that Chui Luowan from the general's estate, that ruthless woman who didn't hesitate to cripple her own hand to rise up, must be thinking the same thing. After all, ambition and greed are natures etched into their very bones. They can't be changed. But what of it? Chui Luoyao and I no longer cared who was in charge of the Eastern Palace. As long as that white moonlight, Lu Mingyun, is dead, the scale in Pei Yunhe's heart will be completely shattered. In order to balance the court's factions toward Jiang Ningyi from the chancellor's estate and Chui Luowan from the general's estate, he will absolutely treat them with equal weight, just as he treated Chui Luoyao and me in our previous lives. No matter how they fight to the death in the back garden, to win over both families' power, Pei Yunhe will choose to turn a blind eye and be a weary master of neutrality. No matter who wins or loses, he won't disadvantage the Jiang or Chui families. Our families will still be able to prosper. So I didn't stop her. Instead, I looked directly into her eyes and reminded her very calmly, "Ningyi, Chui Luoyao and I are now sisters-in-law. And, moreover, close friends. If you truly want to fight to the death with Chui Luowan in the Eastern Palace, as a married daughter, I won't oppose it. But remember this, I will also never again use the Duke's estate or the Chancellor's estate's resources to help you. Your slaughter in the Eastern Palace is your own choice. You must bear all the consequences yourself. Think about it carefully." Jiang Ningyi understood my meaning. She had no dissatisfaction. Instead, she was extremely confident, nodding her head hurriedly. "Good. Don't worry, big sister. My fight with Chui Luowan is a private matter between the two of us, based on our own abilities. Whether I win or lose, I will never involve you or the Jiang family at all." After seeing off the ambitious Jiang Ningyi, Chui Luoyao came to find me with a box of pastries. As expected, Chui Luowan had also mentioned to her when she visited home that she wanted to fight for dominance in the Eastern Palace. Chui Luoyao picked up a piece of osmanthus cake and stuffed it into her mouth. While chewing, she shook her head and sighed, Jean, you really had foresight. You reminded me in advance that I should absolutely not try to stop her, to just let her do as she pleases. But I'm puzzled. If we could persuade them to live in harmony and not fight internally, so everyone could stay safely in the Eastern Palace and enjoy wealth and glory, wouldn't that be better? I put down my book and shook my head, smiling meaningfully. Luoyao, you think of the human heart too simply. First, people who are ambitious and have tasted the sweetness of power cannot be persuaded by us. If you forcibly stop them, not only will they not be grateful, they will instead resent us for blocking their path to success. Then, I looked at the peonies blooming brightly outside the window, my gaze deepening. If they don't turn the Eastern Palace upside down and leave it in total chaos, how will Pei Yunhe ever remember the gentleness and goodness we showed him in our past lives? Only in extreme pain and exhaustion will he understand. Exactly what kind of priceless treasure he lost back then. One afternoon, a month later. The sun was as hot as fire. Chui Luoyao and I were sitting in the gazebo, in the back garden of the Duke's estate, enjoying the cool air. Qin Mukin, who had just returned from court, and his brother Qin Muting, didn't even have time to change their official robes, before coming over with solemn expressions. They brought a piece of news that shook the entire palace. Jin. Qin Mukin gulped down a mouthful of cold tea, lowering his voice. Something's happened in the Eastern Palace, a massive incident. Just yesterday, Lu Mingyun went to visit the pregnant side consorts Jiang and Cui. Less than half an hour after she left, both side consorts experienced unbearable abdominal pain in their chambers. They both miscarried tragically. The imperial physicians arrived overnight, and found in the 2 bowls of pregnancy tonics that Lu Mingyun had personally sent over extremely large amounts of safflower and musk, enough to be lethal. The evidence was undeniable. The 2 side consorts were devastated by the loss of their children, and almost died from excessive bleeding. They cried until they fainted. Qin Mukin sighed. Although Pei Yunhe was almost broken by this sudden turn of events, he after all loved Lu Mingyun to his core. In that situation, he actually still thought of their past feelings and knelt outside the emperor's palace, trying to make excuses for Lu Mingyun, saying she was framed and wanting to save her life. But how could the emperor and empress tolerate such a poisonous woman, who would harm the imperial heirs? The emperor was enraged on the spot, cursing the prince for being muddled. The empress directly issued a decree, ordering her divorce. Lu Mingyun was stripped of her title as the prince's official consort, demoted to a commoner, and immediately thrown into the death row of the great prison. Qin Muting snorted coldly from the side, and added, "That's not all." Early this morning, just as dawn was breaking, the emperor bypassed the crown prince, and directly sent his most trusted head eunuch, carrying a cup of poisoned wine and a 3-foot white silk cloth, to the prison. Lu Mingyun was still crying out to see the prince in the prison, refusing to die no matter what. In the end, she was pinned to the ground by several large, strong old nannies. They used the white silk to snap her neck, forcing her to commit suicide to atone for her crimes. I heard that by the time Pei Yunhe got the news and rushed to the prison, Lu Mingyun's body was already cold and stiff. He held that cold body, and cried his heart out in front of everyone, almost fainting from grief. He didn't even attend the morning court today, locking himself in the secret chamber of the Eastern Palace, and refusing to see anyone. Hearing this, I couldn't help but let out a long, deep sigh in my heart. The crown prince truly held her at the center of his heart. In both past and present lives, no matter how vicious Lu Mingyun's actions were, or how selfish and cowardly she was, Pei Yunhe's love for her never diminished in the slightest. Unfortunately, this twisted and indiscriminate favoritism ultimately killed me in my past life, and killed Lu Mingyun in this life. Luo Yao, however, couldn't contain her inward satisfaction. Excitedly, she slapped the stone table. She sneered, "So what if she was at the center of his heart? Aren't they still separated by death now?" This is exactly what she deserved. I'd like to see, now that he's lost her, this white moonlight he was willing to die for, how our affectionate crown prince will spend the rest of his life facing those 2 even more vicious sisters. Time passed like a fleeting white horse. In the blink of an eye, several years went by. As more time passed, I felt more and more at peace with the grudges and grievances of my past life. In the Duke's estate, I had a husband who adored me, and a pair of lovely children. Life was peaceful and happy. As for Pei Yunhe, I had long since regarded him as an insignificant stranger. Even during grand palace banquets, I would find excuses to be absent, or sit in the most remote corner, firmly avoiding any contact with him. Since that rotten thread had been severed, it should be broken cleanly, leaving no trace behind. However, even if I didn't seek trouble, trouble eventually found me. Much later, the old emperor passed away. As the only crown prince, Pei Yunhe naturally ascended the throne, becoming the supreme ruler of the great Qin dynasty. To balance the court, and to maintain an absolute sense of fairness, after Lu Mingyun's death, Pei Yunhe made an extremely rare decision. During his coronation ceremony, he did not appoint an empress. He bypassed the position of the main consort, and promoted Jiang Ningyi and Chui Luowan to equal status, conferring the titles of noble consort Shu and noble consort De, to jointly manage the 6 palaces. However, this superficial balance brought no peace to the harem. Instead, it became the fuse for an endless war. Both Jiang Ningyi and Chui Luowan were arrogant and ambitious. Neither was willing to be subordinate to the other, to fight for the vacant throne of the empress, and to give birth to a son to inherit the empire. The 2 of them, within the harem, engaged in decades of appalling and cruel internal strife. Today, you put mercury in my food. Tomorrow, I bribe the physician to add sterilization herbs to your incense. The entire harem was turned into a foul mess, shrouded in blood and chaos. Any young concubine who had just entered the palace, as long as she showed any promise, or gained a bit of favor from the emperor, would either die of a mysterious drowning, or suffer a miscarriage and go mad. But the most terrifying thing was that in this endless, cruel struggle, due to the long-term mutual harm from various poisons, not only could the other concubines not have children, but even Jiang Ningyi and Cui Luowan themselves completely destroyed their own bodies. They were unable to conceive for the rest of their lives. Pei Yunhe, the supreme emperor, during his full 20 years of reign, was forced into childlessness by these two poisonous women. Not a single prince or princess survived. Yet Pei Yunhe could do nothing about it, because behind Jiang Ningyi and Cui Luowan stood the powerful prime minister and General Cui, who commanded the army. The forces in the court were deeply intertwined. Moving a single part would affect the whole. For the stability of his empire, Pei Yunhe could only swallow his bitterness, turning a blind eye to their evil deeds. And so, he was trapped in this magnificent cage, plunged into endless worry and torment. He spent his whole life pursuing so-called true love, and favoring his own inner scales. But in the end, he lost the wife who truly understood him, lost his beloved white moonlight, and even lost his basic right as a man to pass on his lineage. During the New Year's Eve banquet in his 45th year, the palace held a grand feast for all the officials. Cui Luoyao and I, as first-rank duchesses, were naturally among the invited guests. At the banquet, Cui Luoyao and I wore our grand official robes, sitting together with our husbands and children, sharing a harmonious scene, filled with laughter. Meanwhile, sitting high on the nine-dragon throne, Pei Yunhe looked gaunt and lonely, with a head full of white hair. He looked 10 years older than his actual age. Beside him sat the two equally haggard noble consorts, who were still slaughtering each other with their glares. After 3 rounds of wine, Pei Yunhe's gaze bypassed the layers of flattery. With an extremely complex and lonely expression, his gaze fell upon Cui Luoyao and me, looking at the genuine, strong, happy, and content smiles on our faces, and seeing the natural, defenseless consideration and respect from the Qin brothers. The hand with which Pei Yunhe held his wine cup began to tremble violently. His eyes instantly turned red. Murky tears slid silently down his aged cheeks, dripping into his cup of bitter wine. I knew that at this moment, he was finally and completely heartbroken with regret. He finally understood that what he had pushed away with his own hands back then was not just 2 women most suited to be his wives, but the only possible peace and happiness he could have had in his ridiculous life. Unfortunately, there is no medicine for regret in this world. This long and painful rest of his life was the heavens' most cruel retribution for his favoritism and coldness throughout both his past and present lives.